Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast, normally recorded in our studio at the Bishopbriggs Media Centre, currently recorded from our volunteers' homes. To keep in touch with us, use our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, which are all at Q and Review. That's CUEANDREVIEW. Or get in touch via information@qandreview.com. That's information@CUEANDREVIEW.com. Please like and share our podcasts and give us any constructive feedback.
Evening Times Sport, March 8. Celtic could be impacted by new FIFA contract ruling. Report by Aidan Smith. Celtic could be impacted by new FIFA contract ruling amid Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Foreign players playing their football in Russia are now allowed to suspend current contracts and temporarily leave the country. Celtic fullback Bolly Bolingoli is currently in Russia with FC Ufa on loan, but he could be set to return to Parkhead given the current situation. Meanwhile, the Russian Football Union will appeal to the Court of Arbitration for Sport against the ban on its national teams and clubs from international competitions. FIFA and UEFA, the governing bodies of the World and European Games respectively, announced that Russian teams would be excluded from their events until further notice following the country's invasion of Ukraine. This means that Russia are banned from participating in this month's Men's World Cup qualifying playoffs and UEFA Women's Euro 2022 this summer. Spartak Moscow have also been removed from the Europa League. The RFU announced it will challenge this ruling in a single lawsuit against FIFA and UEFA. A statement read, "The RFU, the Russian Football Union, will demand the restoration of all men's and women's national teams of Russia in all types of football in the tournaments in which they took part, including in the qualifying round of the World Cup in Qatar, as well as compensation for damage. In order to ensure the possibility of the participation of Russian teams in the next scheduled matches, the RFU will insist on an expedited procedure for considering the case. If FIFA and UEFA refuse such a procedure, a requirement will be put forward for the introduction of interim measures in the form of suspension of FIFA and UEFA decisions, as well as competitions in which Russian teams were supposed to participate. The RFU believes that FIFA and UEFA did not have a legal basis when deciding on the removal of Russian teams. It violated the fundamental rights of the RFU as a member of FIFA and UEFA, including the right to take part in competitions. In addition, the decision to withdraw the national team from qualification for the 2022 World Cup was made under pressure from direct rivals in the playoffs, which violated the principle of sports and the rules of fair play. The Russian Football Union was also not given the right to present its position, which violated the fundamental right to defence. In addition, when making decisions, FIFA and UEFA did not take into account other possible options for action, except for the complete exclusion of participants from the competition from Russia. Report by Aidan Smith. Evening Times Sport, March 8. The reason Rangers striker Alfredo Morelos is pissed off, and why it can only be good for the Ibrox club. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Mark Hateley believes that Rangers striker Alfredo Morelos will be pissed off that Kemar Roofe scored the winner against Aberdeen after replacing him, and reckons that can only be good for the Ibrox club during the remaining games of the season. Roofe netted a close-range strike in Govan on Saturday, just minutes after coming on for Morelos, to ensure Giovanni van Bronckhorst's side won the cinch Premiership match 1-0 and remained in touch with Celtic at the top of the table. The home supporters in the 50,010 strong crowd who had turned up to take part in the Glasgow Giants' 150th anniversary celebrations were delighted at the Jamaican internationalist's late strike. But Haitley reckons Morelos will be fuming that his clubmate stole the limelight and predicted the Colombian centre-forward, who has been on target 18 times so far in the 2021-22 campaign, will redouble his efforts up front as a result. Said Haitley, "I think Alfredo will be pissed off. He doesn't like anyone else scoring. Goal scorers like to score all the goals and take all the credit. That is just the way it is. Roofe wants to score goals, and he can score goals. Alfredo is the same. It is great to have. Whether you can play them together is another question, but if you have got one in the team at any given stage, then you have got goals. You need to keep your goal scorers fit for the run-in. You need all your best players for the run-in. If you go back to the Dortmund game, the 4-2 win over Borussia in Germany last month, that was the best I have ever seen Alfredo. I have been a big critic of him in the past, but he was phenomenal. Every department of his game was immense. His thinking, the way he was moving around the pitch, I just thought, wow. He was clever again at the weekend. His touch is very good now, and he is weighing up situations a lot quicker than he used to, so I am pleased for him. I just hope we can hold on to him and Calvin Bassey after they do so well in Europe. Roofe has not featured regularly under Van Bronckhorst this year, but Haitley thinks the former Leeds United man has a great deal to contribute to the Rangers' cause as the Ibrox club bid to retain the Premiership. He said, "We have got a big squad. You saw that at the weekend when Roofe came on and did what he does. He gets his goal, showed good movement, was very intelligent. So we have got all that in reserve." Report by Matthew Lindsay. Evening Times Sport, March 8. Scotland versus Ukraine World Cup playoff postponed. Report by Aidan Smith. Scotland's crucial World Cup playoff clash against Ukraine will be officially postponed later today. The match was set to take place on March 24, but due to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the Ukrainian FA applied for the match to be called off. FIFA have informed the SFA that Ukraine will be unable to fulfill the fixture, and it now looks set to take place in June. We told earlier this week how Shakhtar Donetsk director of football, Darijo Srna, revealed that UEFA President Alexander Ceferin confirmed the playoff would be delayed until June. Ceferin personally intervened to allow many of Ukraine's international home-based players and foreign stars based in Ukraine safe passage to his home country of Slovenia. Srna, who was capped 134 times by Croatia, contacted Ceferin for help in getting his players to safety, and he has revealed UEFA and FIFA have already decided to move Scotland's game back to June. He said, "I spoke with UEFA President Alexander Ceferin again today. He has stood up for Ukrainian football. I understand that no one cares about football now, but he told me that the match between Ukraine and Scotland will be postponed to June. In addition, there will be a special transfer window set up to allow players based in Ukraine a temporary transfer to allow them to get back playing football. I contacted him when war broke out to ask for help. He personally helped to organise a train to get the players out of the country. He promised he would help the players, and he has been as good as his word. Report by Aidan Smith. Evening Times Sport, March 8. Scott Brown in talks to quit Aberdeen and could retire as a player. Report by Aidan Smith. Scott Brown is locked in talks with Aberdeen about terminating his contract, and reports have suggested that he could be set to hang up his playing boots. We told yesterday how former Celtic and Scotland captain Brown is considering an exit from Pittodrie after Stephen Glass's sacking. The 36-year-old moved to the Dons from Celtic last summer and was an important part of Glass's coaching team before the manager was relieved of his duties last month. The Daily Record now report that Brown is set to retire from playing as he explores further options as a coach. St Mirren manager Jim Goodwin was named as Glass's successor, and the Irishman dropped Brown from the matchday squad for Saturday's 1-0 defeat at Ibrox, sparking rumours of a fallout between the pair. There is yet to be any confirmation from the Pittodrie club, who are gearing up for a Premiership clash against Hibs in 2 weeks' time. Report by Aidan Smith. Evening Times Sport, March 9. Ian McCall pleased to chalk up another win. Report by James Kearney. Ian McCall was pleased to get another 3 points on the board as a late Partick Thistle goal proved decisive for the second time in 5 days as the Jags defeated Queen of the South 1-0. Said the Thistle boss, "The first half was really difficult. The rain really helped the pitch play a little bit better. The first half was just so hard for both teams. They had one half chance, we had a half chance, but the second half we should really score 3 or 4 goals. Some of the play was excellent, but we won and that's all that matters. I don't think anyone can begrudge us the win. We thoroughly deserved it. We go on to Saturday and it's another big game. It wasn't as if we had half chances. Alex Jakubiak was excellent tonight, and Brian Graham knows he should have scored. He's gutted. Cammy Smith had 2 great chances to score. We maybe need to be a bit more clinical, but listen, it's all about winning just now, and I'm not sure it will come down to goal difference. It was a big 3 points for us, there's no doubt about that. We have come a long way in a short period of time. After all the troubles that the club has come through, it's great to see our supporters. We can't really play the way we want to play in front of them because of the pitch, but you saw at the end, I think they were really thrilled with the way we played the second half, and really thrilled with the fact that we won the game. McCall added that he sees Kevin Holt, who popped up with a late winner for the second time in as many games, featuring prominently through the middle next season after spending large spells of his debut campaign in red and yellow playing at left back. He said, "Holt has been a great signing for us. We knew he could play centre back or left back, but he is now. We might have to move him back to left back this season, but next season he will be left centre back whatever league we are in." The visitors enjoyed the better it during the game's opening exchanges, with the Jags a little slow out of the traps. The poor surface and heavy rainfall during the first half didn't exactly help matters, but there was no denying there was a hint of rustiness about McCall's men. Kevin Holt had to react quickly to head a goal-bound header off the line, and Rory Payton headed narrowly over, but Queens failed to make their dominance count as Thistle rode out the storm. As the game approached half-time, the home side began to exert some pressure of their own. Conor Murray shanked an effort wide from the edge of the area, and a few minutes later, Queen's keeper Joshua Ray produced a superb stop as he clawed away a Juan Alegria header from close range. Holt had an opportunity to open the scoring shortly before the interval, when he was afforded some room in the box, and the defender did well to chest and turn, but scooped his finish over the bar. Brian Graham and Cammy Smith were brought on at the break as Thistle attempted to seize the initiative, and the home side improved significantly. The latter went close twice within 10 minutes of entering the fray, but neither effort seriously troubled Ray. Thistle were in the ascendancy now as they went about breaking the deadlock. Graham did well to fashion an angle with the game approaching the hour mark, but his effort lacked the sufficient power to test the goalkeeper. Alex Jakubiak was next to have a go, as he rifled wide from a narrow angle. Kieran McKenna went close, as he flashed a header wide of the far post, and Graham followed suit a few minutes later, but still the breakthrough would not arrive. A glorious chance fell to Smith as a loose ball in the box rolled invitingly into the path of the Thistle attacker, but he blazed his effort from 14 yards over the bar to the dismay of the Firhill faithful. Just as it looked like the game would end goalless, Thistle got the break their play deserved. Smith was hauled down in the box, and Holt kept his cool from 12 yards and claimed the 3 points for his team. Queen of the South player-manager Wally Gibson said, "It's a sore one to take. We knew it'd be a tough game, as Partick are up at the top and challenging. We felt confident, but I said to the boys at half-time I thought there was going to be only one goal in it. It has come down to a penalty, and having seen it back, I think the referee got it spot on." Report by James Kearney. Evening Times Sport, March 9. Ange Postecoglou says, "No day off for Celtic players." Report by Graham McGarry. Ange Postecoglou has told his Celtic players there will be no time off as they look to keep the foot to the floor in the race for the title. Celtic are currently enjoying their first midweek without a match since the end of the winter break, but the manager is making use of the time to focus on getting some work in on the training field, a luxury that he has been denied over recent months. He hopes that not only will the time he has with his players over the next fortnight reinforce some of his principles, but also reinvigorate his men mentally for the Premiership run-in. Said Postecoglou, "It's not about days off, it's just about freshening them off a bit. The players will still be in at Lennoxtown, but they will come in with a different mindset. When you know there is a game coming up in midweek, you tend to just work on your recovery. It will be great for the players to just train as normal, as this is the first free midweek we have had all year. It allows them to freshen up mentally, instead of preparing for a game in the midweek. I will freshen up a few, and I also get the chance to put some real good physical work into others who need it. the ones who have not had a lot of game time recently. I think it will be enormously beneficial for us to have 2 midweeks coming up. It's 8 days between Livingston and the Cup game on Monday, and then we don't play again until the weekend. That's 2 good weeks of training before the international break, and that is valuable time for us as coaches, as we can actually do some work with the players. Report by Graham McGarry. Evening Times Sport, March 9. Postecoglou praises Celtic players' commitment. Report by Graham McGarry. As the Celtic players savoured the win over Livingston on Sunday, they may have been forgiven for thinking they had earned a breather. And with the first midweek without a match since the end of the winter break stretching out before them, they might have thought they would be getting one. They may also not be surprised to hear, though, that manager Ange Postecoglou has other ideas. But that's not to say that the Celtic manager is not full of admiration for the way his players have run through metaphorical brick walls for him so far this season, as well as through some very real hardships. Captain Callum McGregor, for instance, pressed himself back into action ahead of schedule to take on Rangers, wearing a face mask to protect the double fracture of his cheekbone he suffered against Alloa just 10 days prior to that crucial game. Kyogo, at some considerable long-term cost in hindsight, rushed himself back into action from a hamstring problem to score the double that won Celtic the League Cup final against Hibs, before a reoccurrence of the injury at McDiarmid Park meant he was sidelined once more. Even the January signings, Rio Hatate, Dazen Maeda, and, to a lesser extent, Yosuke Ideguchi, have dived straight into Celtic's hectic schedule off the back of a full season in the J-League to make telling contributions. Matt O'Reilly too has hit the ground running after arriving from MK Dons. That commitment to the cause has Celtic in a position of strength at the top of the Premiership, and Postecoglou is keen to recognise it, even if he isn't quite ready to allow his men to take their foot off the gas. Said Postecoglou, "I have total admiration for the way the players have kept going physically during a really tough run of games. This team deserves great credit. We will see how this season unfolds in the end, but all of our players have embraced the challenges we have faced from the start of the season. We had guys coming in without a pre-season with us. Others didn't have a pre-season at all. It was a case of arriving and getting on the pitch. Dazen, Rio and Yosuke came in with just a couple of weeks off after playing the season in Japan. They went straight in and played a lot of football. Matty O'Reilly went from League One in England straight into Premiership football up here and adapted. Callum is another one who has really put himself out there for the team. You talk about the challenges, the pressure, and the intensity at Celtic, but it's a credit to these guys that they have faced everything this year. I am sure they will face more, but the way they have dealt with pressure and adversity without making excuses is great. When things have not gone well, they have not made excuses. They also have not wanted me to make excuses. They have accepted responsibility for everything, and it's a credit to a new group of players who were literally thrown together in the last 8 months. I have great admiration for the way they have dealt with things. That example, as Postecoglou touches upon, comes from the top down, with his captain emerging from not only his recent physical pain, but also the emotional scars of the failed bid for 10 in a row to grasp the mantle of the team's leader left behind by his friend Scott Brown. Yesterday marked a year to the day since Rangers celebrated that title win, wrapping up the Premiership crown with 2 months of the season still to play. How times have changed. Postecoglou believes that the hardships suffered by McGregor, as the world crumbled around Celtic last season, will have shaped his approach to this campaign, and indeed his captaincy. He said, "There is no doubt Callum has been a real leader for this team. He will probably tell you himself that you learn the most about yourself through the most challenging periods. People forget this is his first year as a leader, as captain of this football club. People know the responsibility that goes with that. It's not an easy role. It's not just about being a leader. You also have to play your part in the team." You saw him last midweek against St Mirren when he scored a really important goal for us. Callum's football has been outstanding, and that is where it starts. If you are not contributing on the field, all the other stuff does not really come into the same context. But he's led from the front, and he's played fantastic football for us. He contributes in every game for us. He has shown unbelievable courage to play with that face mask for the last few weeks. And then you add all the leadership qualities he has shown for us. This is his first crack at steering a team through this part of the year, and I am sure he will learn a lot about himself and the way he leads. But I can't speak highly enough about Callum. He has been outstanding. Report by Graham McGarry. Evening Times Sport, March 9. Rugby. Martin Hannon points out why Scotland cannot afford to be sentimental in Kotita Cup. It was a very pleasing gesture from the Scottish Rugby Union to suggest that a new trophy should be crafted to be presented to the winners of men's international Six Nations matches between Scotland and Italy. With the hearty approval of the Italian Rugby Federation, the trophy is named after much-capped prop Massimo Cotita, and that is entirely appropriate, as he was a hugely respected figure in both countries. His loss to COVID-19 at the age of just 54 in April last year was truly heartbreaking to all the many people who knew and loved him. Given the circumstances, I would not normally be too bothered if Italy were the first to secure the new trophy on Saturday, but I have to say this is a must-win match for Gregor Townsend and his men, and hang the sentiment. At this point, I would remind you, however, that the former captain of Italy and Scotland scrum coach played in the first ever Six Nations match between the two countries back in 2000. It may have been 22 years ago, but I still vividly recall how the Italians, with Cotita in the van, took the game to Scotland and thoroughly deserved their 34-20 victory. Nor was it a second-class Scottish side. Doddy Weir and Andy Nicol could only get places on the bench. The diminutive Diego Dominguez was in brilliant form with the boot, scoring 3 drop goals in his 29-point haul. Kenny Logan, by contrast, had a kicking nightmare, and eventually Gregor Townsend was given his duties. Sorry to bring back the unhappy memories, but I do so as a warning to Scotland's players and fans not to get complacent in Rome on Saturday. Yes, I know that Italy have lost every single Six Nations game since they came to Murrayfield and won 22-19 in 2015, and our record against them in all competitions and friendlies is pretty decent. We have only lost twice to them in a decade. But they ran us very close in 2018, and they played very well against France in the first half of the first round of this year's tournament. They were frankly hopeless against England and Ireland, but it's a question of which Italy and which Scotland turn up on Saturday. Will we be the side that beat England, or the team that lost so miserably to France? Will Italy be at their very best, or will they collapse as so often before? Is the Scottish squad ready to bounce back from the merde they played against France? Can Italy get themselves up to the standards they have often shown in the past, especially against Scotland? I do not know the answers to those questions, but I do say it's a must-win game on Saturday, because it's getting Scotland back on track that is most important, and that means winning the Massimo Catita Cup, preferably with plenty tries in a fine open game, where the referee Luke Pearce is barely mentioned. I'll have my say about the laws and referees after the tournament, but hopefully Saturday will just be about Scotland winning, and winning well. That's why indiscipline must be eradicated from the Scotland game plan. The referee cannot give penalties and cards if there has not been an offence committed. To win, you should nearly always play safe, but I hope Gregor Townsend does experiment with his selection. As I have stated before, this year's Six Nations, and indeed next year's tournament, must be played with the 2023 World Cup in the forefront of the minds of coaches and players alike, especially now that we have no chance of winning this current championship. The injuries sustained by the squad and the absences of major players have shown that Scotland must never anticipate playing with the best 23, and therefore it is vital that Townsend and his coaching team help the younger members of the squad to gain the experience they need before the World Cup. I think they are doing that, and it paid off even in that hapless defeat by France, as we saw just what Rory Darge can do. And yes, he and Hamish Watson could both play in the back row together. Townsend was always a player who could think outside the box, and he has taken that mentality into his career as a coach. I would love to see some surprises from him and his coaching team and the players in the match against Italy. Run the different angles, use the blind side, kick only when necessary, and get that sharp passing game going that we know Scotland can utilise. Above all, get on the front foot early and stay there, and Scotland will win in the Stadio Olimpico. It's not about evading the wooden spoon, but about preparing Scotland's future, and winning must become a habit, says Martin Hannon. The National, March 10. Chelsea owner Abramovich sanctioned by UK over links to Putin. Report by Angus Cochrane. Roman Abramovich is being hit with sanctions from the UK government over his ties to Vladimir Putin, as Russian forces are accused of war crimes in Ukraine. The Chelsea Football Club's owner's assets are to be frozen, and he is also facing a travel ban under updated sanction published today. The government document says he has had a close relationship for decades with the Russian president, something Abramovich has denied. It says this association has included obtaining a financial benefit or other material benefit from Putin and the government of Russia. Oleg Deripaska, an industrialist worth £2 billion, who has had close links with the British political establishment, is also hit along with 5 others in the updated sanctions list. Prime Minister Boris Johnson said, "There can be no safe havens for those who have supported Putin's vicious assault on Ukraine. Today's sanctions are the latest step in the UK's unwavering support for the Ukrainian people. We will be ruthless in pursuing those who enable the killing of civilians, destruction of hospitals, and illegal occupation of southern allies." Putin is being accused by Ukrainian President Zelensky of genocide in Ukraine following a string of attacks on civilian populations. The UK sanctions throw into doubt Abramovich's sale of Chelsea. The 55-year-old club put the club up for sale on March 2 in the wake of Russia's continued invasion of Ukraine. Abramovich has owned Chelsea since 2003 and has always staunchly denied any current political links to Russia's ruling elite. Chelsea will be given a special licence to continue operation, but the sale of the Stamford Bridge club is now on hold. The shape of Chelsea's long-term future has naturally been thrown into doubt, but government ministers were quick to insist any damage would be limited. Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries announced on Twitter, "Our priority is to hold those who have enabled the Putin regime to account. Today's sanctions obviously have a direct impact on Chelsea and its fans. We have been working hard to ensure the club and the national game are not unnecessarily harmed by these important sanctions. To ensure the club can continue to compete and operate, we are issuing a special licence that will allow fixtures to be fulfilled, staff to be paid, and existing ticket holders to attend matches, while crucially depriving Abramovich of benefiting from his ownership of the club. I know this brings some uncertainty, but the government will work with the league and clubs to keep football being played while ensuring sanctions hit those intended. Football clubs are cultural assets and the bedrock of our communities. We are committed to protecting them." British billionaire Nick Candy was the latest high-profile business magnate to throw his hat into the ring for Chelsea's sale amid a host of suitors for the Champions League holders. Swiss tycoon Hans-Jörg Wyss and American investor Todd Boehly were also in the running, with more than 10 credible parties understood to have been compiling bids. The Chelsea squad will continue to prepare for their Premier League clash at Norwich as normal, but everyone at the club will now set about examining the details of the current situation. Report by Angus Cochrane. Evening Times Sport, March 10. Livingston coach hits back at claims he's angling for Celtic job. Report by Ewan Payton. Livingston coach Marvin Bartley has rejected a claim that he's angling for a position at Celtic. The Lions' number 2 was speaking on radio last night as he praised the job Ange Postecoglou has done since arriving in Glasgow. The Hoops finally ended their Tony Macaroni hoodoo last week as they defeated the European football hopefuls 3-1 in West Lothian. Speaking on Clyde's Super Scoreboard, former Hibs star Bartley was fulsome in his praise for Postecoglou and the way Celtic play. This bizarrely led to one fan speculating that this must mean Bartley wanted a job at Celtic. The Twitter user wrote, Batman 1 angling for a job at Parkhead, with that sycophantic gushing about Ange. But Bartley was having none of it. Replying directly to the tweet he posted, "Why can't somebody give credit to a team, manager, or player, and it just be that? Whenever I work as a pundit, there is no angle, just the way I see it. More than happy to have a discussion as to why you think I'm wrong, and that will continue, my friend." Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, March 10. Steven Gerrard's Rangers anti-racism stance praised. Report by Ewan Payton. Steven Gerrard's handling of the Glenn Kamara racism incident versus Slavid Prague left former Premier League footballer Anton Ferdinand taken aback. Rangers ace Kamara was disgustingly called a monkey by Andrzej Kudala almost 1 year ago when Slavia defeated the Ibrox side in the Europa League. The Czech Republic international was handed the minimum UEFA ban of 10 games for the offence, as he missed the entirety of Euro 2020 as a result. Gerrard stood by his player throughout the ordeal, and that's something Ferdinand feels could break the mould among managers dealing with such horrible situations. Ferdinand told the Include Summit in Birmingham, "I have never seen a manager protect a player when it comes to racism the way I've seen Steven Gerrard do." You are talking about that generation, and you have got people like Steven Gerrard, who is managing now and producing that level of commitment and support on a topic that is hard to speak about, especially as a white man. I think Frank Lampard would do the same. I think Wayne Rooney would do the same. I think that's because they are moving with the times. They are educating themselves, and they understand that they manage people, that they are not just football coaches, they manage human beings. Ferdinand himself had to deal with racist abuse on the pitch. John Terry was handed a 4-game ban and fined £220,000 for the language he directed towards the defender in a game between Chelsea and Queen's Park Rangers. He explained that the victim can often face harsher consequences when it comes to discrimination. He added, "When it comes to racism, the victim is always the one who's made to feel like the perpetrator. I played 11 years in the Premier League prior to the Terry incident. I played 13 times in the Premier League after the incident, then never played again. I had to go to Turkey because of managers that knew me, managers that knew my friends and family would not touch me. Not because they didn't want to touch me, but the club didn't. The reason why is because whenever that club would play against Chelsea or against John Terry, the club would have to talk about a topic which they didn't want to speak about, racism. And I didn't speak up at the time. So that's happening, and I'm not even defending myself. I'm being put in a box where the perception is, he's the bad egg, it's him. That honestly made me feel like it was me versus football." Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, March 10. Chelsea banned from selling tickets as sanctions hit. Report by Kieran Doody. Chelsea will not be able to sell any more tickets as owner Roman Abramovich has been sanctioned by the UK government amid Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It means only season ticket holders can attend games for the foreseeable future. It is part of the government's attempt to crack down on wealthy Russians with assets in the UK. The Chelsea owner is one of several oligarchs who have faced sanctions. Culture Secretary Nadine Dorris said that Vladimir Putin's attacks on Ukraine involved new levels of evil by the hour, and the government had announced further sanctions against individuals linked to the Russian government. This list includes Roman Abramovich, the owner of Chelsea Football Club. She acknowledged this would have an impact on the Premiership side, but a special licence would enable it to continue operating. It comes after Abramovich announced he intends to sell the Premier League club, with net proceeds from the sale being donated to all victims of the war in Ukraine. The sale of the club will bring to an end 20 years of ownership, with the Russian-Israeli billionaire buying Chelsea in 2003. Evening Times Sport, March 10. Scott Brown backed to become Celtic manager by Brendan Rodgers. Report by Ewan Payton. Scott Brown has been backed to become a Celtic manager one day in the future by previous manager Brendan Rodgers. The Leicester City boss reckons Brown could well follow in the footsteps of Billy McNeill by returning to the club as the main man in charge. The 36-year-old Brown terminated his contract at Aberdeen earlier this week, just 9 months into a 2-year deal. It remains unclear whether he will hang up his boots to fully focus on his coaching career, or whether there's still scope to continue as a player for the time being. It was reported yesterday that Rodgers is prepared to welcome Brown into the King Power setup to allow him to expand his coaching development at a Premier League club. But the former Parkhead gaffer believes whatever Brown decides to do next, eventually, in the fullness of time, he will emulate Lisbon Lion hero McNeill. Rodgers told the Daily Record, "I do think that one day that could be the position for him, but I'm not sure it's the best step for him to go back right now. If you look at it, Ange is doing a great job, and he's very clear in how he works. Then behind him, you've got a brilliant coach in John Kennedy, who is there to support the manager, and you also have Gavin Strachan and Stephen McManus. So you have good coaches there already, and below that, it's always been Celtic's way to bring through their own young coaches. I am not saying Scott would not be a great addition to that. He would. And I'm not saying he needs to put distance between himself and the club either. It's about him having the time to allow himself to grow and develop in his career, wherever that is. But I definitely think there will be a pathway for him to go back to the club at some point in the future. He has obviously been a fantastic player and captain of the club, and he could go on to follow in the footsteps of Big Billy. I am pretty sure if Brown really wants to do that, then I think he will do it. But it's about building up the skill set to best enable him to become the manager of Celtic and deal with the pressures and the expectations he will then encounter. I have absolutely no doubt he can then go on to do really well as a manager or a coach. It's just about waiting for what he sees as the right opportunity. He could go in as a coach and give players a little bits of gold dust from his own playing career. So he could start by doing that and then go on to become a manager somewhere down the road. Or he could step straight into a manager's position because he's been such a leader all this time. He could then have other coaches around him. But there's no doubt that having someone like him at your club, whatever club that is, would be absolutely fantastic. Management requires a different skill set. Just because you're the highest level of player, you cannot just expect to go straight into the same level as a coach or manager. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, March 11. Balogun makes Rangers goal admission after stunning win. Report by Chris Jack. Leon Balogun was relieved to see his stunning header hit the net as he gave Rangers breathing space against Red Star Belgrade. The champions stormed into a commanding first-half lead at Ibrox as James Tavernier converted from the spot and Alfredo Morelos fired home from close range. But it is Balogun's fine nodded effort that could prove decisive, as he rose well to meet a Tavernier corner and beat keeper Milan Borjan shortly after the break. Balogun said, "Tactical discipline and the flexibility to adjust is so important. We had a really good match plan and we executed it to a T. For me, it's all about preparation and in-game management. We did a little adjustment at half-time and even during the game. We always get instructions from the side, and it's just perfect teamwork in that sense, and a great managerial job as well. I thought the header was looking good. I was a bit scared when the goalkeeper got there, but without sounding arrogant, I guess it was a really good contact, and the header was just too strong, and I'm obviously really pleased that it went behind the line." Report by Chris Jack. Evening Times Sport, March 11. Boxing. Dean Sutherland aiming for lucky number 13. Report by Graham McPherson. Having achieved one of his 2 boxing dream goals already this year, Dean Sutherland will this evening look to take another step closer to reaching the other. The Aberdonian has given up his day job as an electrician to commit full-time to boxing, with a view to one day become British and/or Commonwealth welterweight champion. The undefeated Kynoch boxing fighter will look to make it a lucky 13th victory in succession when he steps into the ring at the Beach Ballroom to take on fellow Scot Corey McCulloch in what should be a captivating contest. Not having to fit in training and recovery around his working hours has made a significant difference in his preparation for this fight, and the 23-year-old believes a raucous hometown audience, as well as those watching at home on Fight Zone, will see a fighter ready to take his career to the next level. He says, "Since the start of 2022, I have been a full-time athlete, and it's been fantastic. It's made a huge difference, not just with my training, but also with my recovery and the mental side of things too. It's great just not being rushed off my feet 24/7. The biggest thing is actually having the time to properly rest. Maybe go and get a sports massage, or a bath, or just take the time after a session to have a proper stretch off. And that's all made a massive difference. I'm loving the whole new lifestyle, and it's got me in the best shape possible for this fight. It's also given me a better balance and given me a social life too. They say a happy fighter is a dangerous fighter, and I think we're going to see that on the night." Sutherland has collected belts in his 2 previous fights, lifting the WBC youth title in the outdoor show at Hamilton last summer, before stopping Michael Esposito at the Ballroom in November to win his WBC International silver strap. He admits, "The last fight went well, although I maybe made it a harder night's work than it really needed to be. There were some mistakes in there, backing up too much and sitting on the ropes. I got into a bit of a firefight. Maybe it was the crowd, or I just wasn't switching on from the start. I knew I had the power to hurt him, and the bell saved him in the third and fifth rounds. But I kept chipping away, and the referee did the right thing by stepping in to stop it. Signing a contract with boxing streaming channel Fight Zone has given the southpaw a bit more structure to his career trajectory. Sutherland already expects to be back out again in June, and believes fighting regularly will strengthen his chances of moving quicker into title contention. He adds, "I loved fighting at the ballroom the last time. It was the first time Fight Zone had been there, and they were comparing it to the famous York Hall in London. They couldn't wait to come back up here, and I think my next 3 fights will all be at the same venue. That's great for me, and also for my fans, knowing they're not going to have to travel to watch me in action. Being able to bring big boxing nights back to Aberdeen has been fantastic. With the backing of Fight Zone, my manager Sam Kynoch, my trainers, plus my nutritionist, I feel that everything is going in the right direction. I've got a good team behind me now. I've got a quick turnaround for my next fight, which is penciled in for June 25. It's good that now I'm full-time, not to have to wait too long between contests. I want to keep pushing to get closer to an opportunity for the British and Commonwealth titles before the end of the year, or maybe step up and go for a WBC European title. I'm quite big for the weight, so we've got the option of moving up to super welterweight at some point as well. The other item on Sutherland's boxing list is to fight one day at Pittodrie. His beloved Aberdeen are not enjoying the best of seasons, and the man known as Deadly joked he'd love to go in and sort them out. He laughs. I think I'm the only hope the city's got of winning anything for a while. There are maybe a few characters in the Don's dressing room who need straightening out. I had hoped that Scotty Brown was going to do that, but maybe I'll go in and have a word. I'm hoping to make it along to a few more games now I'm boxing full-time. Hopefully I can also speak to the folk at Pittodrie to arrange for me to fight there one day, as that would be class." Report by Graham Macpherson. Evening Times Sport, March 11. Maida isn't Kyogo, but Celtic players appreciate his qualities. Report by Graham McGarry. The phenomenal success of Kyogo since arriving at Celtic has posed something of a problem for anyone else attempting to fill his boots, whether that has been Georgios Giacomakis or Dazin Maida. While the injury to the striker has opened up opportunities for both of those players to start games, his brilliant goal-scoring form prior to his latest layoff has also set the standard by which other forwards have been judged. For Greg Taylor, comparisons between Kyogo and Maida in particular have been unfair, with the fullback arguing that both players have their own distinctive styles. Maida, he says, may not yet be fully appreciated in a wider sense, but he certainly is inside Lennoxtown for the work he does both off the ball and on it, with his boundless energy a huge asset for Celtic. Taylor said, "Kyogo set the bar really high with the way he started. He has been unbelievable, and we can't wait to have him back. But I think Dazin has done really well for us. A lot of his work goes unnoticed. The way he presses and creates chances out of nothing is a midfielder and defender's dream. He works so hard for the team. Believe me, he's very appreciated. All of us in the building are all grateful to have him. Dazin has already played a full season, and his work rate is unbelievable. All of the lads work their socks off, to be fair, but Dazin is just a cut above the rest. It's second to none. Report by Graham McGarry. Evening Times Sport, March 11. Rangers Europa League winner odds slashed after Red Star win. Report by Ewan Payton. Rangers' odds on winning the Europa League have been slashed following their huge 3-0 win over Red Star Belgrade last night. Giovanni van Bronckhorst was keen to stress that it was only half-time in the last 16 tie. However, there is no doubt that the goals from James Tavernier, Alfredo Morelos and Leon Balogun have earned Rangers a big advantage going into next Thursday's second leg in Serbia. The first leg victory has certainly fired the Ibrox side into a great position to make the last 8 of the competition. So it is only natural that wondering eyes are starting to look further ahead, with fans dreaming of a trip to Seville come May 18. Following last night's game, as well as knocking out Borussia Dortmund in the last 32, bookmakers have cut the odds on Rangers winning the whole thing. Betfair have slashed the Light Blues odds from 25 to 1 down to 14 to 1. Van Bronckhorst's side were 150 to win the competition at the start of the knockout stages. But while the bookies are taking notice of Rangers' progress, the Ibrox side are still 2-1 underdogs to win their second leg clash in Belgrade. The favourites to win the Europa League are Barcelona at the short price of 5-2. Leipzig and Seville follow closely behind at 4-1 and 5-1 respectively. Atalanta and Lyon are the only other two sides with a shorter price than Rangers, with the Italians 15-2 and the French outfit available at 10-1. West Ham are out at 16s. Bayer Leverkusen are on 22-1 and Real Betis are on 25-1. Betfair spokesperson Sam Rossbottom said, "Another famous European night in Glasgow saw Rangers take a huge step in booking their place in the Europa League quarter-finals by easing past Red Star Belgrade. Giovanni van Bronckhorst's men have moved from 25-1 to 14-1 to win the tournament overnight, while Barcelona remain the 5-2 favourites to go all the way." Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, March 11. Van Bronckhorst issues warning to his players. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Giovanni van Bronckhorst has issued a warning to his Rangers players in the wake of the resounding 3-0 win over Red Star Belgrade in the first leg of their Europa League last 16 double-header at Ibrox. A James Tavernier penalty and an Alfredo Morelos goal in the first half and a Leon Balogun header in the second secured a comfortable triumph for the Scottish champions over their Serbian rivals. However, Van Bronckhorst felt that Dejan Stankovic's team, who had 3 goals disallowed for offside during the 90 minutes, posed a serious threat going forward. He knows the Glasgow club, who were awarded an early penalty after a VAR review, will have to perform well again in the rematch in the Rajko Mitic Stadium next Thursday evening to secure a place in their first European quarter-final since 2008. He said, "It was a tough and demanding game. There was so much happening throughout the whole game, but, of course, I am happy with the result. We played really well. If you saw the game, you would think more goals were in it, also for them. We did really well. The second half was going really well. We had to change some tactics at half-time, and it worked out well, so I am really happy. We go to Belgrade next week. It is going to be hard, maybe harder than today, but we have a 3-goal difference to take with us. But this tie is not over yet." Van Bronckhorst brushed aside a question about Rangers, who beat tournament favourites Borussia Dortmund in the knockout round play-off last month, going all the way in the Europa League this season. He said, "We are just taking it game by game. People talk about the Dortmund game, but that game is history now, and we are playing against a new team. I think Red Star Belgrade are very strong, as I said before. They are here for a reason, and I am happy with the result we have. But this tie is not over yet. We can be happy with the performance, but next week we have to be there. The environment they have over there is similar to the environment we have here, so we have to be ready. But we park Europe for the moment and prepare for Dundee on Sunday now. We will think about Red Star again on Monday. When you look at the results in this competition, there aren't many goals, so to score 3 goals against a team like Red Star is a great performance. But like I said, after we played Dortmund away, we're only halfway. If we are there next week, we will have a big chance to go through to the next round. But now it starts all over again." Report by Matthew Lindsay. Evening Times Sport, March 14. The Monday kick-off. Seriki Dembele might beat his brother to the punch after slow Celtic form. Report by James Morgan. Seriki Dembele might beat brother Karamoko to the punch. Karamoko Dembele has long been touted to make a major mark in Scottish football, but despite the hype since his early teens and spurned interest from at least one Premier League club in England, he has made just 7 league appearances for the Celtic first team. The 19-year-old has, of course, spent most of this season on the injury list, having fractured his ankle in a friendly against Bristol City last summer. In his period on the sidelines, the success story of another member of the Dembele family has added an extra chapter. Dembele's elder brother, Seriki, moved to Bournemouth in the January transfer window, having made rapid progress during his time at Peterborough, where he scored 30 goals and had 30 assists in 147 games. The elder Dembele's route into professional football was an unconventional one. At the age of 18, Dembele did not have a club, but managed to attract the attention of the Nike Academy at St George's Park before he was picked up by Grimsby Town, where he showed enough promise to convince Peterborough to sign him. The transfer to Bournemouth takes him into a new sphere, although he did not come off the bench for Saturday's 2-0 win over Derby County, but he has already given a glimpse of what he brings with a late winner in the victory over Blackpool last month. Scott Parker, the Bournemouth manager, admitted then that Dembele would need time, but that he had been impressed by what he had seen so far. Said Parker, "He can beat a man 1v1. He can bring people right tight to him and get out of tight situations. He's probably a 1v1 specialist in that, a dribbler, so he's going to be a big help for us going into the run-in now. The Scotland-eligible Dembele sounds like the kind of player Steve Clarke, the Scotland manager, could do with when it comes to breaking down stuffy, compact opponents, but there's just one problem. If I'm honest, I have Ivory Coast in mind, but the truth is, I haven't made the final decision on which one I would pick, Dembele said recently. When the time comes, I'll know. My family moved from the Ivory Coast to London, not for footballing reasons at all. This was just my parents' decision, not mine. Then we moved to Glasgow, and we've been living in Glasgow ever since. Recalling Scottish heroics at Cheltenham. Watched a rerun of a race from the 2012 Cheltenham Festival last week. It was that thrilling Albert Bartlett novice hurdle when Brindisi Breeze, guided by Haddington's Campbell Gillis, clung on in the final furlong to record a gritty, ballsy win over hot favourite Boston Bob, to strike a blow for Scottish trainer Lucinda Russell. Boston Bob would go on to win a Punchestown Gold Cup 2 years later, but sadly, we never got to find out the extent of Brindisi Breeze's potential. 2 months after that win at Cheltenham, the horse leapt out of its paddock early one morning and ploughed straight into an oil tanker and was killed instantly. 5 weeks later, Gillis was dead after a swimming pool accident while on holiday in Greece. His death was a hammer blow to Scottish national hunt racing, robbing it of one of racing's most naturally gifted jockeys. You don't try to let it, but it does define you, Finn Gillis, Campbell's brother, told me some years later. 10 years on, the great tragedy about his brother's defining moment at Cheltenham is that we knew there should have been so many more glories to come. Swift still has wind beneath his wings. 2 years ago, Stephen Swift, the then BSC Glasgow manager, invited me into the dressing room for a fly-on-the-wall series detailing the Lowland League club's exploits as they reached the 5th round of the Scottish Cup. Minutes into the experience, it was pretty clear that Swift was a coach who had a higher ceiling. He did a pre-match talk on tactics for the forthcoming game against East Kilbride on the Thursday night. He reiterated them prior to kick-off on the Saturday, then whipped his players into a kind of dervish-like frenzy before they went and promptly thumped their opponents to set up a tie against Hibs. It has come as little surprise to see the sterling work that has gone on at Stenhousemuir since Swift arrived in the summer, elevating the club from the bottom reaches of League Two to the fringes of the play-off race. Saturday's goalless draw against fellow promotion chasers Edinburgh City was disappointing, but not terminal to their promotion hopes. Don't be surprised if they just manage to squeeze in. Fotheringham's German lessons. Mark Fotheringham was an intriguing candidate to be Neil Lennon's assistant manager at Omonia Nicosia, before the former Ingolstadt and Karlsruher coach turned down the job with Cypriot side over the terms on offer. Fotheringham spoke to Herald Sport in January about his time in Germany and offered an insight into what makes him tick as a coach, and explained what he had learned from those he had rubbed shoulders with, particularly Bayern Munich legends Jürgen Klinsmann, Thomas Link and Felix Magath. He said, "There is a saying in Germany which is immer weiter, which means keep going. That rubs off on me. We're always demanding more in Germany. We are never just satisfied. We want to win at all costs, and we're always trying to improve. It's just relentless. Fotheringham went on to detail just how committed to his craft he was, by rhyming off his working week, spent watching matches in Scotland, England, Germany and beyond. Astute, fluent in German, with a clear coaching mindset, and his UEFA Pro licence almost complete, it is surely only a matter of time before the 38-year-old is back in a job again. Raducanu gives glimpse of her best. It's great to finally see Emma Raducanu recapturing some of the form that took her to United States Open glory back in September. The big fear since the British tennis star achieved the feat is that the weight of expectation placed on her shoulders might cause her to crumble. Certainly, her performances have not been entirely convincing. She had 3 wins out of 6 since capturing her Grand Slam at Flushing Meadows, and exited the Australian Open at the start of the year in disappointing circumstances. At Indian Wells this week, though, she has shown that she might be starting to find something akin to her best form. There have been plenty of distractions for Raducanu in the last 6 months, having become the face of Dior, Tiffany's and Evian water. Some experts have tried to claim that these sponsorship deals have taken her focus off her sport, but there has been plenty of unwanted attention too, not least concerning the recent stalking case in which Amrit Magar, who repeatedly turned up at the tennis star's home, was given a 5-year restraining order and 200 hours of community service. 41. The number of games it took Benny Banningham to score his first senior goal, having made appearances for Everton, Derby County, Wigan Athletic and Hearts. Given that he had scored just 1 goal for Everton's under-18s and under-23s, it could be some time before Hearts fans see another from their Congolese midfielder. Report by James Morgan. Evening Times Sport, March 14. Alfred Morelos has boosted transfer value yet again. Report by Ewan Payton. Rangers star Alfredo Morelos has firmly put himself back in the shop window with his recent impressive performances. That's according to former Celtic attacker Chris Commons. The ex-Scotland star reckons the Colombian has recovered his transfer value of late, particularly with his goals in the Europa League. That said, Commons does not think a new contract at Ibrox for their star striker can be ruled out, with just over a year left on his current deal. While the player deserves plenty of praise for his form, Commons also pointed to the Rangers coaching staff for their part in his upturn in performances. He wrote in the Daily Mail, "When you look at the transformation in Morelos, some things are obvious. He is playing much higher up the pitch now as a genuine number 9, rather than the deeper role he played under Gerrard. He also looks much fitter and more focused than the player who had appeared so disillusioned and disinterested towards the end of the Gerrard reign. But some things are perhaps more difficult to see. I just wonder what effect Van Bronckhorst and perhaps, more tellingly, Roy Mackay have had behind the scenes. They say that football is a universal language, but clear communication is key. Van Bronckhorst and Mackay both speak fluent Spanish, something which is bound to be a big help to Morelos. Van Bronckhorst spent 4 years at Barcelona, whilst Mackay was a goal-scoring machine at Deportivo La Coruña before getting his big move to Bayern Munich. Particularly in the case of Mackay, I think his influence on Morelos has been massive. Morelos is now under the guidance of a man who was among the very best strikers in the business. He is now playing as a proper penalty box poacher, while retaining all of the link-up play he had developed in Gerrard's system. Mackay knows what it's like to score big goals in Europe. He still holds the record for the fastest ever Champions League goal scored after just 10 seconds for Bayern Munich against Real Madrid. On his day, he was one of the most lethal strikers in Europe. If he is imparting some of that wisdom and experience onto Morelos, then Rangers can only benefit. Morelos was an animal against Red Star. After doing what he did to Dortmund and Hummels, it was so impressive to see him back it up with another big performance. Sustaining that form from now until the end of the season will obviously be key to Rangers' title chances. Even with just a year left on his contract, he could attract a big money bid from abroad or down south in the summer. Not quite in the same region as what Celtic got for Moussa Dembele and Kieran Tierney, but maybe somewhere around the £10 to £15 million bracket. With just 12 months left to go on his contract last summer, Odsonne Edouard was in the same position, and Celtic sold him for £14 million. That's the sort of money Rangers could be looking at if Morelos maintains this form, which is a hell of a lot more than they looked like they could get for him just a few months ago. There is no doubt he has put himself firmly back into the shop window with some of his recent performances. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, March 14. Real Madrid stepping up interest in Kieran Tierney. Report by Ewan Payton. Real Madrid have stepped up their interest in signing Kieran Tierney from Arsenal, it has been reported. The global giants are said to have received a glowing report of the Scotland left-back, and it is said that Real's efforts to sign the former Celtic star could be helped by the Spanish side's close relationship with the defender's agency. ICM Stella have Gareth Bale and Eduardo Camavinga on their books, who are at Real currently. Los Blancos are said to be keen to make Tierney their next big signing to go along with them, as well as superstar Kylian Mbappe, the Daily Record say. Boss Carlo Ancelotti has previously been quoted as being a fan of Tierney and praised him back in 2019 ahead of his switch from Parkhead to the Emirates. Arsenal do not want to lose a player who signed a bumper contract until 2026. It is reported that the Gunners will command a fee in excess of £50 million. Celtic will be keeping a close eye on the situation as they hold a 15% sell-on clause. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, March 14. Conor Ronan says he would swap Wondergoal for St Mirren's semi-final chance. Report by Graham McGarry. St Mirren's man of the moment, Conor Ronan, says he would have gladly swapped his wonder strike against Hearts to have made the semi-final of the Scottish Cup, but he saw enough from his team's brave performance to give him encouragement for the rest of the season. Stephen Robinson's men fought back from 2-0 down at Tynecastle on Saturday night to draw level, with Ronan's incredible effort sailing past Craig Gordon from all of 30 yards. It wasn't ultimately enough to take the Saints to Hampden though, with Hearts hitting back to win 4-2, and Ronan said his goal was irrelevant after his side was sent crashing out of the tournament. Said Ronan, "It is disappointing. I would have taken getting to the semi-final over that goal all day long. But it's always nice to score a goal like that in front of the fans and celebrate with them. It would just have been so much better if it counted for something. We were putting on a bit of pressure at that time. We had a couple of corners and a long throw-in, and it was about keeping the pressure on them. The goal arrived, and we just needed to see out the next 10 or 15 minutes to absorb the pressure. When they got the third, we needed to go and chase the game again, and with the attacking players they have, they are always going to be dangerous on the counter. The first half was a big positive. We were unlucky to be 2-0 down. It took their 2 goals for us to start playing, and then we dominated. Eamon Brophy got the goal and gave us confidence to push on, and we finished the half strongly. We never came out for the second half though. Maybe we were a bit leggy after all the pressure we put on them. They just seemed to be getting out, and we couldn't take the pressure any longer. Despite the setback, Ronan is thoroughly enjoying life at St Mirren on loan from Wolves, and he is keeping an open mind on his future. He said, "I still have a contract at Wolves. I will obviously have a think and a chat with Wolves, but I have loved my time here. The fans have taken to me from day one, and this has probably been my best spell in football. I have had a few loans at different places, but this is the one I've enjoyed the most so far. Has there a chance of keeping me? Possibly." Report by Graham McGarry.
And that was this week's Glasgow Times Sport podcast, normally recorded in our studio at the Bishopbriggs Media Centre, currently recorded from our volunteers' homes with the publisher's kind permission. Thanks for listening.